Football news. We're going to start with some fantasy football. We just did our draft. We always wait until the preseason's over because of injuries and final roster cuts. It's always I like the late ones. I know some people start in like the first season, like preseason. I'm always like, you don't know who's gonna. It's like, oh, it's part of the strategy. It's like I get it.
Yeah, last week
people took J.K. Dobbins and
yeah, someone in our league did.
Yeah, someone in our league took J.K. Dobbins the day it was announced before our draft started. He was up for the whole year.
Yeah,
and somebody still took him.
We talked last week about our ratings for wide receiver 1, 2, 3, quarterback 1, 2, 3, running back 1, 2, 3, stuff like that. And we mentioned if you're going to take wide receivers, we had to tie for third, Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep.
And we said in that if you get the respective quarterback, you should take their respective wide receiver. And it turns out that's exactly what I did.
And that's what I did, except I didn't get my quarterback's number 1 wide receiver. I got his number 2, but that's all right.
Yeah, took Dalvin Cook in the first round. If you're still doing your fantasy draft, basically first overall, you're going to take Dalvin Cook. You're going to take Christian McCaffrey. It's one of those two guys.
And it's if you're not a fan, or maybe you're from Florida and like Tampa Bay, and you don't want to take but you don't want to take Panther number 1 and don't want to take a Saint, so you take out Kamara there, then Dalvin or Henry.
One of those 4 guys. Take one of those 4 guys.
That's what I think. I think if you're scared of injuries, stay away from Dalvin and Christian. If you're scared of sharing touches, or a reduction compared to last year, I'd be a little wary of Henry. But I think all 4 of them are going to have amazing seasons again. Like, there's nothing that tells me Derrick Henry can't do what he's done in the past again. Alvin Kamara, if anything, has a larger workload this year. He's probably not going to have another 6 touchdown game.
Yeah. If you don't have those 4, take Tyreek Hill, number 1 wide receiver the last 2 years, pretty sure.
Devontae.
Aaron
Rodgers and Devontae are both in contract years.
Aaron Rodgers fell a ton in our draft.
Yeah, but we're also in Minnesota.
Yeah. But I mean, but comparatively last year when you took him,
I took him
compared to
third
this
round,
year,
I think.
Compared to this year, he fell a lot. So
I think if you're going to take a wide receiver instead of a running back early, I would take Devontae first and then Tyreek personally.
Yeah, I think there's those 2 guys, and then
I always try to go for contract years.
Sure.
If they're in a contract year, or if they're likely to be traded, I tend to take them, because I think they're likely to ball out because they're trying harder.
Yeah.
And that's always worked. I feel like that's always worked for me. So that's just a little tip I have for people.
And then get your tight end early. There's
not many.
3.5. We could say 5.
If you miss out on the top 3, you can wait until round 14. It doesn't matter.
I got Mark Andrews, which is basically tight end 4. I've seen a lot of things have him tied with Kittle, kind of in that range.
I think that depends. And now with J.K. Dobbins being gone, I think that's fair. And with Bateman being out, Hollywood Brown potentially missing the first game.
Yeah. So I got Mark Andrews late after the big 3 tight ends went. So,
and I got Gesicki really late,
which I, in my opinion, is tight end 5. So
yeah, and I got him. I think I got him in like round 10. For those wondering, like I got him late.
Yeah, and then Logan Thomas is up there too, which I also would consider.
Logan Thomas is somebody I tried to stay away from. I rated him high. I had him on my board high, but I tried to stay away from him because Ryan Fitzpatrick likes to use wide receivers more than tight ends, and then he likes wide running backs next. And then on top of that, Logan Thomas just got a contract, and I also tend to stay away from guys that just got contracts.
Sure.
Just because you never know which guy is going to do the
I pulled your approach last year. Last year, you took basically all the tight ends from people, I think, or maybe that was the year before.
Last year, I took Kittle. Every year I tend to do tight end heavy. Because we run a flex position. So if you get somebody, there was a couple of years where I had Jordan Reed. And I think there was one year where I had Kelsey and Jordan Reed. Yeah. And then there was another year where I had Jordan Reed again and like Ebron's good year on the Lions.
You had Kittle and somebody. I
had Kittle last year, but that was
you had like Kittle and Kelsey. I swear you had. I thought you had both.
I tend to do tight end heavy though.
Yeah.
Because a mixture of strategy of helping your team score, you always have a flex, and if you have a good flex outside of those tight ends, then you have a backup tight end for when your other one's on bye. Right. And because there's so few good tight ends, you hurt the rest of your league as a tight end that scores 2 points every week because you have the two tight ends that score touchdowns.
Right. So that's what I took. I took Mark Andrews and Logan Thomas to.
I think you could also let other people go after Kittle and Kelsey. And if you wanted in like rounds 2, 3, or 3, 4, you could try to slide in Waller, Andrews.
Yeah, Waller and Andrews. Yeah.
If you're able to slide Waller, Andrews, I think that
a lot of people have Waller above Kittle.
Exactly. So if you can get one of those guys plus a Mark Andrews, in my opinion, that's the sort of thing I would do.
Yeah.
This year I did a little different, and I drafted like 3 running backs as my first 3 picks.
Yeah.
To do so, instead of taking tight ends from people, I tried to take running backs from people.
Yeah.
I took Nick Chubb, which I wasn't originally planning to, but then I ended up with the 8th pick, and the guys that I wanted most early on were gone.
Yeah, I think Chubb was right behind. Let's see. I there's the big 4, and then there's Saquon, Zeke. I think they're kind of in that next tier. And then
I don't trust either of those guys.
Yeah, so Saquon and Zeke are kind of in that next tier.
I think Zeke's a better pick than Saquon. I think Saquon has potential to boom more, but if you're somebody if you're weary of injuries, running back who keeps getting leg injuries is terrifying.
Yeah.
So Saquon, I love Saquon. Penn State, I was like, okay, this is the next big running back, but he's never in, can't play.
Right. And then
it's sad, but he's really good.
Chubb's in there in that mix too.
My running back, I have Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, James Robinson. And then I have Ravondre Stevenson as my backup running back. So I have good running backs, but my receivers are weak. My quarterback's good. I mean, I got Derek Carr and Justin Herbert. Obviously, I'll start Herbert unless it looks poor, unless he looks bad. But I think Herbert's a solid with new O-line. Yeah. I wanted the Kyler D-Hop combo, but I think everybody else in our league was thinking similar because those guys all went super early.
Yeah, I got them 24 and 25. So that's when I drafted them. I got Kyler and D-Hop.
But yeah, there's some people tend to wonder like matchup wise, like, oh, should I play this person or this person? There's a lot of people that got Kenny Golladay early this year. Kenny Golladay is somebody that is recommended. I recommend benching him for the first week. The Giants, with a lot of new weapons and trying to get Saquon back into the mix, I think they're going to start out off. I think they're trying to figure out who gets the catches. So they're not sure if Sterling Shepard's even going to get catches. They're not sure if they want to give Evan Ingram back into the lineup. He's potentially out the whole season.
Yeah, you got Kenny Golladay. You got Darius Slayton or something Slayton.
And Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, and then you got Shepard, Ingram. Yeah, you don't know where the ball's going.
So I think Kenny Golladay is somebody that's a boomer bust potential week 1. So I tend to stick away from those early on. He's somebody that a lot of people have questions on. There's a couple more people that people have questions on. People weren't sure if Julio Jones was going to do well to start out. He is practicing. People weren't sure if he was actually going to practice. He is practicing, and he goes up against Arizona. I think Arizona's games, I think if any time you go up against Arizona this year, I would play that team or play your player.
The running backs against that team might be rough with their D-line. Their D-line's pretty good.
I think their offense moves so fast that by the end of the game, second half, their defense is going to be exhausted anyway.
Right.
So I think it's shootouts no matter. Even with a good defense, they're going to have shootouts.
Sure.
Oh, Josh Jacobs versus Kenyon Drake. People weren't sure about. The Raiders today said yesterday in an interview with their owner. Not only did they talk about John Gruden potentially being on the hot seat, like we talked about last week.
We did do that.
We did.
We did talk about that.
But now all the other media shows are talking about it today. So we were a little early on that, but
we got our insiders. Our insiders are good. So
Al Davis, their owner was talking about how why would we went after Kenyon Drake as a split carry? Why would we're not telling you that Josh Jacobs isn't going to be the starter anymore? Yeah. And so basically he came out with a statement saying Josh Jacobs' load will not be lightened. If anything, they're just going to be more run heavy and take the ball out of Carr's hands. If people who are scared of playing Josh Jacobs got a little bit more reassurance that he will actually be playing. Ferkser, bad news for the people that drafted him is he is potentially even going to be their second tight end on their roster. I was one of those people. I took the risk on him.
Yeah. You got Gesicki though, so you could afford to.
I took a risk.
That risk in tight end, and they did. Jonnu did so much last year. You had to try. You had to try to get that replacement. So,
and then the top unowned quarterbacks on Yahoo right now, on Yahoo Sports and CBS Sports. Jameis Winston is the number one quarterback they recommend picking up. I'd give that some time. You should, if you drafted a quarterback, and if you're not sure about your quarterback after the draft, you should be worried about your team in general.
I guess my advice for Jameis would be wait until week, say, if you hopefully you have a quarterback with a late bye week, that gives time for Michael Thomas to be back week 7, and then have Michael Thomas get acclimated to get back in action. Hopefully you give that a couple weeks, and then I'd maybe consider Jameis. That'd be the only
same.
The only bit.
Otherwise, if you're looking for a sleeper stash pick, one of the biggest ones I would say is Marcus Mariota. He's currently a backup. Multiple teams are inquiring with the Raiders on trading for him to be their starter. So one of those guys, similar like a Zach Ertz, if you target those guys, I did that with James Robinson. It's similar. Like if you know their starter is potentially going to get traded, you draft their backup knowing they'll eventually be a starter. Marcus Mariota, there's a good chance that he becomes a starter by the end of this year somewhere. And people don't trade for guys like quarterbacks to not heavily use them. So just a stash pick. If you're a 15th or 16th round, you want a backup quarterback and you're comfortable with your starter, I would slide in Mariota there.
Sure.
Just I like Mariota. Fun.